Congress is focusing on police reform legislation, but Republicans and Democrats have different ideas on how to go about this. This after Senate Democrats blocked a procedural vote Wednesday to begin debate on the measure. Meantime, the House is set to vote today on the Democrats' version of their police reform bill called the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2020. Well, here to discuss the stalemate further is Congressman Pete Stauber, who represents Minnesota's 8th Congressional District. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here and talking about this very important piece of legislation.
Exactly. First, I want to get your reaction to Senate Democrats blocking the procedural vote on the GOP version of the police reform bill, the Justice Act, which you helped draft its companion bill in the House. What's your reaction?
Well, I think that if you look at the Justice Act itself, it has transparency, accountability, and performance measures. And one of the things that I think the country is asking and the communities are asking is let's get the changes in the police departments, the culture changes, the training changes that they're asking for. And this has the opportunity to be that piece of legislation. 80% of what's in the Justice Act legislation is bipartisan. That is a positive, and it's a giant leap forward in transforming America and the American police departments and police officers, and I think it's just a real good bill, thought out. Senator Scott and I, from his perspective, growing up as a young black man, and my perspective as having 23 years in law enforcement, we put a real good, what I think is a very bipartisan, comprehensive, common sense and pragmatic piece of legislation that really everybody should be on board with.
And we know Senator Tim Scott, he expressed his frustration on Twitter, saying he was willing to hear Democrats' calls, but they were unable to do so. And as you mentioned, before being elected to Congress, you served as a police officer in Duluth for over 2 decades. When you hear people talking about defunding police and abolishing departments altogether, what would you like them to know about that sort of proposal?
Well, we know that defunding the police or abolishing the police departments is ridiculous. Police officers and the men and women in the blue and brown that protect us in our cities and our communities every single day, it's a noble, honorable, and worthy profession. And, we're looking at a transformative piece of legislation that can help them even become better and using best practices. And I think that in our bill, it actually affords monies for community policing. And when you implement community policing policies, procedures, and standards, you don't police your community, you police with your community. And you build trust and great relations. And it's a culture. It has to happen from the chief all the way down to that last officer hired. And so when people look through this piece of legislation, and I have colleagues on the other side of the aisle that say, Pete, this is a really good bill. And we're proud of it. And the country is asking for this. And we need to deliver. We need to listen to them and deliver this piece of legislation and get it on the floor for debate. I'm all about debate. I'm all about looking at amendments. Excuse me. I'm all about looking at amendments. So, and having that debate in transparency, in the open, in the House of Representatives.
Now, what are the chances a police reform bill will be passed and sent to the president's desk before the July 4th recess? We know in the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, he really wanted to get that passed, but then you had that procedural vote on Wednesday that failed, and then now you have Democrats who are wanting to pass their version of the police reform bill in the House today. Is there any chance this GOP legislation has a chance to be passed before the July 4th recess or even thereafter?
I always look at legislation and legislating as the art of the possible. And I think this, we have the ability now in the House these next couple of days to have that debate. I just hope politics doesn't come into play. And I know in the Senate they didn't even bring it up and weren't even allowed to have amendments and what have you. And I think that in the House of Representatives, rather, when we put it on the floor, we want that robust debate on any amendment that my colleagues want to talk about.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.